Once you've tried to pull costumes from stock and figured out what's still missing, there are three main ways you can go about finding those items. You can buy them, you can rent them, or the shop can make them. In this video, we're going to talk about buying things. So when you're thinking about buying costume pieces, there are two sets of concerns that you need to think about. The first is artistic. You want to think about where the character might buy their clothes. This is especially true of contemporary plays, where you might actually be able to buy the costume pieces from the place the character would buy their own clothes from. But the second concern has to do with more practical things like your budget. If you have a character who you think would shop at Saks Fifth Avenue, but you don't have a Saks Fifth Avenue budget, you're not going to be able to buy the costumes there. This is where secondhand stores can come into play. It can be really helpful to buy secondhand in order to get nicer pieces of clothing for cheaper, and also to get newer vintage items, like especially the 90s, the early aughts. A lot of that stuff can be very easy to source from thrift stores. One problem with shopping at thrift stores is that they often don't have as generous of a return policy as buying new. So if you buy something at like Forever 21 or Macy's and then you try it on the actor and it doesn't fit, you will almost always be able to return that. At thrift stores, you usually can't. Some places might allow you to do exchanges, but most places don't even allow that. So you want to think about, if I buy the perfect pair of jeans at L Train Vintage, but then they don't actually fit, can my budget absorb that cost, and can I then still get another pair of jeans? So you want to think about that too when you're thinking about which stores you go to. When you go out shopping, there's some things you want to bring with you. You will probably get petty cash from the costume shop to pay for things with, so you want to have that with you. You probably want to have some kind of bag. I like to have a small pouch that's like a cash pouch that has a zipper to make sure I don't lose anything like coins, because it's important to keep track of your receipts as well. So you might want like a small pouch to keep track of your receipts and your money. You also want to bring a tape measure with you to make sure things fit. You're going to bring your measurement quick sheet. You're going to bring your lists of what you're looking for. It also can be helpful to bring small pieces of paper to, if you're buying something like several pairs of jeans for different characters, to make a quick note of whose jeans are these, pin it to the jeans. It's just going to make it faster for you when you get back to the shop. You also need to have with you a tax-exempt form. So Hunter College is tax exempt because it's an educational institution. Most clothing in New York City does not have tax on it, but some does. For example, if an individual article of clothing costs more than $114, it's taxed. And because we are tax exempt, the department will not be able to reimburse you for taxes paid on an item. So it's important to have that tax exempt form with you. You might have to ask for the manager if the cashier doesn't know what to do with it, but most stores in New York are pretty familiar with that process. You want to make sure you have that with you as well. Online shopping can be a great alternative to in-person shopping, both because there's a lot of online-only stores now, and because it might help you with size availability, because some stores only carry certain sizes online. But if you're shopping online, especially at an online-only store, it's very important to scroll down to the bottom of the page you're looking at, because that's where you're going to be able to see their shipping policies, so you can make sure it will come fast enough and not be too expensive to ship, as well as a return policy, and also a sizing guide to make sure that you know what a small means on this particular website. Some specific websites I want to highlight. If you're shopping on Amazon, you want to make sure that you've set it to only show you things that are either Prime eligible or have free shipping by Amazon, because things that don't fall under that can sometimes be coming from really far away and take like 3 or 4 weeks to get here, and that won't usually work. Some sources for vintage online, if you've got a show set in like the 20th century and you want to get real vintage garments. Etsy can be great, but similarly to Amazon, there's a lot of different sellers. The sellers are all over the world, so you got to be really careful about when something's coming and what the return policy might be. So you can filter by estimated arrival time. So if you know when you're going to have fittings by, you can select that or put in a custom date and to make sure you're not seeing things that would be shipping from Australia or something where you can't possibly get them on time. Rusty Zipper is also a great online vintage source. Things usually come fairly quickly, and you can make returns there. Historical Emporium is not a vintage store, but it is a period clothing store. So these are contemporarily made, but made to look like various historical periods. It's a little bit expensive. Renting is often a better option for period garments, but sometimes you might need to buy things, especially things like accessories. American Duchess is another great source for that as well. Once you get done with a shopping trip, whether in person or online, you want to immediately put down how much you spent in your budget. So this is the budget from Last Days of Judas Iscariot here at Hunter College last fall. Before I bought anything, I wrote down estimated prices of how much I thought I could spend on a given garment. And that allows you to think through what your budget is, what you have to buy, and what you should stay below when you're shopping for things. And then after I'd bought them, I put down how much I actually spent in this actual price column. And that way, Excel is really helpful because it does the math for you. So then at the bottom down here, when all was said and done, I could total up what I'd spent. I also put down here the shipping and taxes, things that aren't necessarily assigned to a specific garment because maybe you bought 4 different things on the website, right? And the total shipping cost was $16.95 or whatever. And then you can total that up, and so then you can keep a constant track of how much you spent, where you're at with your budget, and it's not a surprise when you get to the end. So, to review, what are 3 things that I should bring with me if I'm going out to shop in person at stores? And what are 3 things that I should keep in mind when looking at online sources?